And good afternoon, YouTube. Like I said, James here back for another review. Actually, I did these back to back with the last one with Reservoir Dogs, and I just realized there was some points I didn't make because I kind of dropped it, but it was technically the whole Spike Lee one. But like I said, I was gonna get more into that when we get to Jackie Brown and Django Unchained. Um, this is pretty much, I feel like the heart of Quentin Tarantino. And it was another thing I forgot to mention with Reservoir Dogs, and I'm gonna get into it because it was somewhat similar to this movie. Um, Pretty much, this is more like an anthology crime, you know, story or movie. It's actually three stories rolled into one. Now, I'm not gonna get into much detail about. I'm just gonna talk about the classic crime, noir, feel somewhat noir. At least that's how I felt. Noir feel to it and how it was done. One of the things I forgot to mention about Pulp Fiction in this movie, and many more other similarities, is that how the story was told. With Reservoir Dogs, it was told out of sequence, and so was this movie. And the thing what I liked about it is that not only this was told out of sequence. Uh, oh man, I lost train of thought. Not only this was told out of sequence, but at the end of the movie, it cuts right back to the scene shot at a different perspective, and I had liked this very much because it was an inspiration for the second comic book story that I'm doing. A little bit of Naruto Shippuden also had an influence as well because they did that whole opening sequence with Naruto and Sasuke I think in like the first episode, and we didn't come back to that till like episodes later when they had a confrontation. But you really had to watch the other series, to really see that. It was really made for the fans. You really couldn't be brand new and start watching it because you would be lost. But you know, pretty much the first story is with the two hitmen played by Samuel Jackson and John Travolta, and they're going to execute this guy for a business deal that had went sour by their boss, played by Ving Rhames, which is Marcellus Wallace. And it's more comedic than professional because when I think of hitman, I think you do certain things to not get seen or caught, or you have a certain persona about yourself. But I think there's different classes of hitman versus super high professional hits versus classic gangster criminals that just do this and take out the whole trash. Um, but That's pretty much that story. I think the second one was what was it? John Travolta's character taking out Mia Wallace, which is Ving Rhames' wife, and that to me was funny, but it was also scary at the same time. Because let's just say she took some drugs and some messed up stuff happened to her, and I like the whole chemistry and dialogue between Uma Thurman and John Travolta. When I first saw it, I think that was the first scene I really thought whatever this movie was, they were in the scene, being a paired, and I finally sat down and watched the whole thing. The funny thing, my mom, she likes Tarantino movies too, but I think this is the one she had never saw. She only saw bits and pieces, and that's how what happened with me too. Every time I came home, or I just so happened to catch it, I only seen or watched like the beginning or in the middle or a little bit of the end. I never sat down and watched the whole thing. The good thing on Virus, I had the movie. I went in the back and I just watched the whole thing, because the opening scene with Travolta and Sam just had did it, the best. And I think the next story, actually now I realize it's four stories. And the next one was with Bruce Willis and John Travolta. Yeah, Bruce Willis, the prize fighter boxer who doesn't throw the match. John Travolta's in it too, and that just builds up on the drama of a fighter's pride. And again, I did a prize fighter boxer in the comic book story as well, and that's where that kind of came from. And of course, I know of some boxers, and I talk with them, and this, that, and the other. And what was another? What was the last one? Oh, the last story goes back to the one from the very beginning, and everything just wraps up. So I will say this: the interesting character to me was Jules, played by Samuel Jackson. He does have like a little redemption arc, and it was funny kind of how it happened because they were doing that hit, and a guy came out and tried to kill him, but he never hit him with the bullets at all. And then he was talking about the whole divine intervention, and then him and John Travolta go back and forth. You know, John Travolta saying, you know, like God came down from heaven to stop the bullets, and Sam's like, that's exactly what it was. And it was kind of funny because he does end up getting killed in the movie. He gets Bruce Willis's story chronologically is the last one there, last one in the whole story set, and you know, he does end up getting killed. And it's kind of funny because they were saying that if you ever notice how bad things in the movie happen to him, he's always reading this book in the restroom, and it's multiple bad things that keep happening every time he does that. But I think what really had did him in is that he didn't. It was that whole religious conscious belief that, you know, he didn't share with Samuel Jackson, and I heard some people say that was the real reason why he got killed. You know, you in there taking a dump, and dude so happened to come back. He see the Tech 9 on the counter, which why I do not know. You know, if you really think about it, John Travolta would have lived if he would have had the gun, you know, in the restroom with him. You know, you going to do this hit. Why are you leaving the gun like out there? You at least should have had it in the restroom with you if you were going to do that shit. So it was just the funniest thing. You know, they had some banter in the beginning of the movie too. You know, and it was a lot of extra stuff, you know, behind the scenes in the script. At one point, John Travolta talks about his car being keyed in a deleted scene. And they come to find out, you know, Bruce Willis's character Butch was the one who had did it. And you know, the movie in a way is kind of like, you would say, like Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing, but it's still interesting because it is something there. It's like what I said with the last, you know, Reservoir Dogs. You know, just seeing them talk and have the dialogue and talk about everything else about the plot. Like in the beginning of the movie, John Travolta is talking about his trip in Amsterdam. You know, they're not really talking about, you know, these people they're going to go kill for this business deal that had went sour. So it's just a very, very, you know, intriguing film. Samuel Jackson's best acting, you know, to date. I think this was another level that had put him really up there. You know, of course, working with Spike Lee and Do the Right Thing, and then doing this, and ironically he's a referee between, you know, the two of them because he's done movies with them even recently with both, you know, directors. But the thing is that the whole redemption thing, if you really think about it, is very, very intriguing. And even in the final scene where, you know, at that robbery where Sam has Tim Roth's character Ringo, and he's talking about the whole Ezekiel passage, you know, the path of the righteous men's of the evil and the inequity, and how he talks about how, you know, he's the sheep and I'm the shepherd because I'm the one that has more authority to kill you right now, and you robbed the wrong dude. Yeah, but I'm trying real hard to, you know, he gave a really, really good three-dimensional perspective with, you know, the biblical passage. And even I was saying that about the Bible itself, that it, you know, even though the passage is in the Bible, is not directly in, I think he said Ezekiel 25:17, but when you hear that whole dialogue of how he makes, you know, different perspectives of what the passage really means, you know, of you know, how the world is really evil, and one example, how the world was really evil, and he's the sheep doing the bad thing, and he's the shepherd, or no, he's a righteous man, and the 9mm is the shepherd, you know, protecting him. And then he even flips it multiple times in different ways, how he talks. So you got to really see the scene to really see what I'm talking about, because it was very, very interesting. You know, when every time I watch it, I sit down and I listen to it, I analyze it, I get different, you know, views on it. I know some more stuff that I was going to say, and I probably, you know, forgot, or I was going to come back to it. I will talk again about the Spike Lee thing. Thing is, in this movie, of course, the controversial word nigga, it wasn't really, I think it was said the same amount of times in Reservoir Dogs, and I think I didn't get to more detail with Spike of him getting mad, is that in this movie there are more diverse characters in it. You know, it's not an all white male cast. You know, there are blacks. There of course Samuel Jackson, Ving Rhames. There's other female characters in this. You know, it's just a much more broad variety of much more stuff going on. And the thing is that definitely when it gets to Jackie Brown, um, a lot of black people love this movie. You know, when black people think of Tarantino, it's this one and some of the older audience that know of him too. They think Jackie Brown as well. So, uh, really, when I reviewed Jackie Brown, pretty much Tarantino, he said that Spike was also mad at him that he made a black movie and had pretty much got away with it. And I'm like, that's pretty much, it makes sense, but it's the dumbest thing on Spike's part, because there have been white directors that had made black movies. You just never knew who they were, you know, or they would do a narrative movie that you wouldn't think about it. Like 12 Years a Slave, you know, or I take that back, more recently there have been more black directors doing these slave narratives. Like, of course, you know, Nate Parker with Birth of a Nation, you know, Steve McQueen with 12 Years a Slave. But there's some other ones too. Not that many people know that Steven Spielberg did The Color Purple. I know a certain generation doesn't, you know, or yeah, a certain generation doesn't, because that movie's almost an all black cast. Yeah, actually, it is an all black cast, and Steven had did that movie. He had directed it, of course. I don't know who wrote the screenplay, and Amistad, I can't remember the actor's name, the one from Africa, but I'm gonna talk about him a little bit later when we get to Furious 7. He's a very good actor as well, and he was the model from Africa, and that was the first movie I seen him in as a kid. My mom went to go and take me to see Amistad in the theater, and what was it? Shit, what was I about to say? Oh, that was directed by Steven Spielberg too, and again, it was a slave narrative. Even yeah, so what was the other one? This one's not really properly known, but Denzel Washington is in it. Actually, a lot of known actors are in this one. A Soldier Story. The mixed guy that played the father in the Color Purple, Danny Glover's dad, he's in that too. That's the other movie I know him from. And of course, I'm drawing a blank on the other dude's name as well. But he was in the Medgar Evers Story. He was also in the TV version of In the Heat of the Night. I know you know his face. You just like I said, an older generation know his face, but he was in the Soldier Story as well, and that was the one about the black sergeant that had showed up dead, and it was a mystery, and they had to figure out who did it. That was done by a white guy too, and again, it's pretty much majority of it's an all black cast. Yeah, you know, David Allen Greer was in there, and it was of course Denzel Washington, the guy that played Coach Heese in the Warriors. I think his name was David Harris. So, you know, it's funny how people don't look at, you know, the history or look at black movies and really look who has done them. The good thing is that, you know, people like John Singleton, the Hughes brothers, you know, who else? Mario Van Peebles, they have done black films. It's just that when Spike had seen Jackie Brown or Pulp Fiction, and the way that the black characters were written, they weren't really stereotyped. Yeah, and I think that's something he couldn't admit. Yeah, or at least that's what I'm saying. And that's why, you know, Tarantino was saying that, you know, I got away with writing a black movie because when people, you know, when I talk to black people who've seen my movies, most of them, it always goes back to Pulp Fiction. Yeah, especially with Ving Rhames and Samuel Jackson being in the movie. Yeah, so it's just kind of funny how, you know, politics plays into it. And then especially with I think Django Unchained, when it came out, he said that some white people didn't like it either. It was more the white liberals that were siding with the whatchamacallit. And I talked about them before, I think, when I talked about the Get Out film. Yeah. And the thing is that this is how people talk. Even and it sucks because if I was to make a certain movie just like this one, Well, technically with the dialogue, I would get criticized for it too. Like, especially say like if I write Asian American characters and I write them in a certain way, I guarantee you there's going to be some SJWs who are going to get pissed about it. But I'm like, it just goes to show you that you don't hang out with these people. You want to take, you know, the side for Asian pride, or label me a hick or a racist. But if most of my friends are Asian and I've, you know, either been to their house and hung out with them and their parents, and they, even their parents were telling me certain things within their culture and how it's being Americanized, I definitely don't want to hear that shit. Because if you're sitting there criticizing me and getting mad that I made this kind of film, yeah, come on, man, really? Yeah. So it's just that I believe that you should also pay respect and not do stereotypes of people, because you do deserve that criticism and rebuttal. But if you stated in interviews, and even it seemed like they will watch the film and say it's decent, but then when they find out that it's a non-Asian person that has done it, or it's a non-cultural person in their culture that has done it, and they did it in the right way, and all that has been going on around in Hollywood, and it's been the funniest thing to me. You know, Marvel had got attacked by that. Ghost in the Shell had got attacked by that, and it was kind of funny because, you know, with the whole, pretty much the whole whitewashing thing, and with Ghost in the Shell, you know, the creator had really said, I never really sat out of a race for the major, and then the whole twist on the film, you found out what was really going on. But I'm jumping off topic, so you know, I really, you know, this film, every time you watch it, especially with the whole, the one thing you can take from this film is what I pretty much said about that whole path of the righteous and the fierce anger and vengeance and all that. That whole scene, I think it really is the heart of the whole movie, because it is kind of true. All these guys are criminals, and you see how the world is shaping them to do certain things. You know, of course, some of the things they choose, but some of the scenarios they get into, it is such a trance and dentling awakening moment, just like what Jules had. Now, of course, like with Reservoir Dogs and this, people possibly have what was I about to say, have different, you know, or better words, you know, to describe better than I can. But that's pretty much all I have to say. And wrapping this up, another good interesting thing about this, or you probably already know, mostly or all of Tarantino's movies interconnect. And even with this one, the character of Vincent Vega, come to find out, he actually said this. Vincent Vega is the brother of Mr. Blonde and from Reservoir Dogs, the one that had a thing for torturing people. And the thing is, it goes to show how both characters are two completely different people, but you can definitely see them being brothers. They're both criminals. They have a past, except one of them is more professional, has more manners. And you know, I really like to think that even actually, I think I will, in my mind, I always saw that this film was actually the prequel to Reservoir Dogs, mainly technically with Tim Roth's character doing the whole robbery. I really think that right after that happened, he later had eventually became, you know, who he does in Reservoir Dogs. Again, I'm trying to like not spoil what happens, especially when he has that whole transcendental moment with Samuel Jackson's character after he tells him about, you know, you're the evil man, or it's the world who's evil, and you're the sheep, and you're doing all these bad things. And I think with that conversation, that had got him to change his life and do what he had did. But mostly all of the actors in Reservoir Dogs are in this movie. Hell, even Harvey Keitel, he plays the Mr. Wolf, the guy that cleans up, you know, who fixes problems and all that. I really think either he is that was really Mr. White before all that had happened. You know, like I said, it's a whole prequel, and you know, him wearing the suit and all that, and then him doing the heist. Again, I think that really was him. Even Mr. Pink, Steve Buscemi, is in there, and it goes back to the whole ironic thing about the whole tipping, you know, talk that we're having to being in the movie. He's actually at the restaurant as a waiter So it was kind of ironic how he had said it, and then he's doing it. And like I said, it's so the whole thing is a prequel to Dogs. Um, Again, I can go on and on and on, talking about how both movies definitely are connected, and when you really sit there and analyze it really with the characters. Oh, good thing I know what I was going to say about this movie, about the whole narrative. Um, the narrative is the way it's done is so well, is if video games has kind of done his style, and the only one I can really think of at the moment is Grand Theft Auto 4. You have three different characters, and they bit by bit were releasing it, in DLC, but it was one big story, and all of them had interconnected, and it was the same thing with Pulp Fiction. Yeah, so every single A character shows up, and it's just like, okay, you see how the yarns and how everything intermingles. Same thing with I think the other movie a little bit like that was Crash, except actually, now that I think about it, Crash, it was told out of sequence. Yes, so and how all the strangers had connected with every single scenario. So, the good thing is that I did it for my comic book, and I'm glad I did it. Only so far, I'm for it with the comic book, it's the martial arts one. You probably seen it on my thumbnail. It's one iteration of it, but it is like, the first story, the narrative is told like that. It's told in the past, and then throughout issues, you see the pieces interconnecting to where the point is, and you even see it after. And even certain scenes I've shot, at certain reference points, they're all different. So it's just a good storytelling, good art piece. Very very good. Vibes all around. That's pretty much all I have to say. Like I said, other people have other good reviews or interpretations. I'm just giving you mine, of course. But like I said, mentioning doing Tarantino's movies, the next one's going to be Jackie Brown. And besides that, I will talk to you all later. Peace.